Today is late May 2009. 65 years ago, almost to the day, in the valley below me, tens of thousands of troops from all over the world were assembling prior to the invasion of Normandy that took place on June the 6th, 1944. Can you imagine, in that valley, literally tens of thousands of people and all their equipment being hidden from the German Luftwaffe as they tried to search for when and where an invasion might come. And during that wait, General Eisenhower came down here and had a word with the troops about what they were about to face once they disembarked on the Normandy beaches on the 6th of June 1944. I am retiring from the European Parliament after 5 years as a representative of the people of South East England. And during that 5 years, I've had a grandstand view on what really goes on in Brussels in their names. And if I was a skeptic before I got there, I am even more of a skeptic now I've seen what I had to see over that time. I suppose there were essentially four aspects of what I experienced that really ought to be addressed and made more well known than they actually are at the moment. The first is the institutionalized looting of public funds. The European Union has for the last 14 years failed to have its accounts signed off, and that sounds a relatively minor thing because it is not uncommon for governments not to have their accounts signed off. But we are talking about 100 billion euros a year and more, and we are talking about anything up to 80% of it not being properly accounted for. We're not talking about money round the edges that's gone missing and been written off. We are talking about the vast majority never being properly accounted for. The worst, of course, is agriculture, where the Parliament itself has absolutely no power to intervene whatsoever. It is excluded from our ability to scrutinise the accounts. And yet, if we are to believe, for example, the Greeks and the amount of money that they claim for olives and olive groves, they are to be seen growing in the Aegean Sea. That is how blatant the misuse of public money is in the European Union. I'll give you another example, which, if I had not experienced it myself, I would never have believed possible. My office received a phone call earlier this year, 2009, and I was told that the Deputy Prime Minister of Bulgaria, no less, wished to come and see me to discuss the fact that Bulgaria had had part of its European Union funding stopped because of corruption. Frankly, I didn't believe that this was a real proposition. I did not believe that the Deputy Prime Minister of any country would wish to come and see me in my office. But indeed that was the case. And she arrived with a coterie of 4 young advisors, and they sat in my office and they told me, in essence, that they thought that Bulgaria should not be discriminated against simply because everybody else was just as corrupt as they were. And I said to this Deputy Prime Minister, whose name I cannot now pronounce and couldn't then, I asked her, what do you imagine would be the reaction if I went back to my country that contributes hundreds of millions of pounds a year into the European Union club subscription and told them what you have just told me? Can you imagine, can you begin to imagine the uproar and the appalling reaction that I would encounter? At which point she closed her case, she indicated to her staff, they picked up their bags and they left. Now that is an indication of the cultural difference between what goes on in Britain and what we believe to be right in the accounting of public money by public figures, and what is regarded as the norm and perfectly acceptable in many, particularly Eastern European countries. Those men, those brave men 65 years ago, all put their lives on the line to save Western democracy. And today we have another battle of a different kind on our hands, but the purpose is precisely the same. It is to save Western democracy, freedom of speech, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the Americans put it in 1777.